Any questions or comments?
So with a technique like this, it reminds me of the Buddhist texts you talk about, where it's just page after page of it's not this, it's not that, it's not this.
Yes.
So seeing it as a puzzle, it's not hunching, it's not physically changing the height of my body by any means necessary.
Yeah.
It's, I think the analogy of the sinking is helping me because now I'm trying not to focus on just changing the height of my body, but instead figuring out how do I achieve that sense of sinking.
Yeah.
Whether my head lowers or raises, doesn't matter, just to put the concentration of my mass in the lower part of my body.
Yeah.
But I keep attacking it from this physics perspective. You know, and when I do it like that, I find I end up using a lot more muscle in the wrong places than I should. So at the very end, a strong throw to me equals this, a hunch over type thing, as opposed to a strong throw simply sinking and doing what's necessary. So it's still a puzzle to me, but that kind of, tonight's class felt like one of those, it's not this, it's not that, it's not this, it's not that.
Yeah. Yeah. James, can you shut this door? You know, when I hear that, it makes me, you know, what we do here is very different from what is done in most places. And that always comes back to me to the reasons that, you know, the masses can't be right by default. I mean, the philosophers throughout time have pointed that out. And in most schools, and you guys probably don't know much about this, but there's a very strong vibe that has everything to do with modernity and the loss of our technologies of self that help us, because we have broken with the past in the name of consumerism, and we've become scientistic, and so we have dropped the value of the mentor and a mentoring system, and that system has been relegated to the shadows of our society. And so the same goes for the martial arts. In the martial arts, it is a very commonly held idea that a teacher that acts as a mentor and that comes with any kind of authority or demonstrates any kind of hierarchy, practical or otherwise, is bad. So most people have this hesitation and this problem with a mentor without ever asking, if I did want to have a mentor, could I? Because you'll find when you ask that question that you can't. You can't. You won't have the humility, you won't have the discipline, you won't have the commitment. You just don't. And your modern sensibility is actually a modern incapacity. And that becomes a problem when I need to learn something that is beyond words, which is what mentors did, because almost every art that you would ever study, from violin to dance to leatherworking, is going to be beyond words. And ancient civilizations didn't have a problem with that because they didn't have this logocentricity that we have. And they didn't have this dying need to sell. How much money you can make was not figuring into the equation. And I think when people train now, because they have this disdain for a mentor, and because there's an underlying incapacity for a mentor, the art has to be reduced to things you can put into words. So it's all angles and technique. Exactly what I told you not to do today. Don't do the technique. You need to find this other power source. And you do find it by not this, not that. Exactly like in those Buddhist sutras. Why do they list it's neither this nor that, it's neither this nor that, right? It's not right nor left, it's not above nor below, it's not inside nor outside, it's not on this mountain or on that mountain, it's not with this bodhisattva or that bodhisattva, because it's beyond those things. And by beyond means, mostly, you can't learn it. It cannot be transmitted by those things. And what modern martial arts has done is just go, without knowing it, enough generations have passed, well, you don't have within you the capacity to be mentored, so I don't have to mentor, and I don't have anything to transmit in the end. I will give you angles, I will give you architectures, and so you can learn these things on the internet or on video or DVD. I mean, why do we have that? Why is that so prevalent now? You can get a black belt. You can train online now. As a historian, that makes sense. Yeah, you lost the essence and you've reduced it to these materialistic things, and so it's marketable. And so you don't need the teacher. You just need the techniques. Even with the not this, not that, is to feel it. To feel the power, which you can feel. You're like, holy cow. When my teacher used to do the technique, that was always what stuck out to me. How in the world is there so much power? You're not that much stronger than me, if you were. So you can feel that, and then you can feel the other things that happen. Like I mentioned, the connection. All of a sudden, my uke knows exactly where to go. How do I explain that in a text? Because when I say it, it sounds total bullshit. But when you see it, you see the effect. It's not bullshit anymore. You just can't explain it. I was thinking the other day of magnetic forces. Everyone accepts magnetic forces. Have you ever seen them? Is there a machine that'll show them? You could do a search on the internet and they go, how to view magnetic forces. All you're seeing is the effect. But I can't see the force itself. But it's there and everyone knows it's there. So the same thing, I don't know why. I don't know why they will find the right place to go without knowing it. I go back to the poetics, and I call them poetics. Most teachers don't call them poetics. I'm just, I am a modern person. I understand science. And so I can tell that's a poetic term. So when they say, like, you're sticking to me, the nage, the uke is sticking to you, not you sticking to them. We've done experiments with the friction, and I'm trying to explain it to you. But even then, I told you that's not really it, if you remember that day. That's not really what's going on here. So they'll talk about a sticking that happens, and the guy that we last viewed, his explanation was because he has to keep his balance. Sometimes, not all the time. That's not what's going on. I don't know what's going on. My scientific theorizing is more that our understanding of gravity is too shallow to make sense of what's actually happening. Not he doesn't want to fall, so he's going to stay on there. That's not it, I don't think. But because, like I told you, I'm not an academic, so I don't need to know that. I just need to do it. It works. So I do it. But how do I even know that exists if all I am studying is architecture? Angles, levers, fulcrums. This used to be a very basic beginner understanding of an art like Aikido, but today is the apex for many people. And I think it's related to modernity's incapacity to be mentored. And like I said, it's not that mentoring does not exist, it does. It's just hidden. Those people that become masters at whatever art, yes, they have a mentor. And they're having surreal, abstract discussions just like we do. Where they're like, you're playing the notes, but I don't feel it. Like, what does that mean? Then the teacher's listening, and the student is able to stumble upon it, and then the teacher goes, yes, I feel it. The student doesn't know what, okay, it's something in here. Do you get it? It's kind of like you're getting warm, and then you keep looking around in that area. Do you get it? It makes sense to me that there are other ways of learning than this logocentric model, and it makes sense that we have a longer history pre-Enlightenment, and we seem to learn a great many things just fine before we became logocentrists. The school systems that we have now, which has come to influence a lot of our transmission systems, is really based in, the industrial era. I need two things. I need workers and I need consumers. It's not really geared towards artistry, mastery. And this is what a culture does. It comes up with its economic needs, workers, consumers, and then it piles onto it symbolic markets, right? And now you're the best worker consumer because you went to Harvard. You're still a worker consumer. Do you guys understand? And now everyone tries to be the best worker consumer they can be. So you go to your desk and you line up like you are in a factory. You go from place to place like a factory, like you're the thing itself. And to sit at the feet of an artist and to listen and to believe, hey, maybe there's more to life than working and consuming, people are terrified of it nowadays. But if you keep yourself afraid of it, you will not know what is beyond words. And then you will come to say, there is nothing beyond words. That's when you've lost. That's when you've lost. And I don't know how anyone could really say that. We do all kinds of things that are beyond words. All kinds of things. And usually they're the best things. They're the best things, from sex to love to music to dance to, right? You don't reflect back on your, like when I reflected on the cherry blossoms, and it's a feeling. Do you think I described it accurately? No. You have to go. You have to go yourself. You have to go see it. I told you you wouldn't believe it. I told you I went, not knowing. I had no idea. I've heard people talk about the Grand Canyon that way too. They get to the edge and they're like, oh. Like nobody says anything. Just the silence overwhelms them. Why? If I tell you the dimensions of the Grand Canyon, do you start going, oh. No, we don't, right? Because it's beyond words. So much of life is like that. And this art is like that. There are many things, as I said, that I did not get from my teachers when they were alive because you run out of time. Not this, not that, not this, not that, not that. Warm, 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 cold, 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 hot, 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 cold, cold, cold. It's like that, and then they're gone. But it's in you, do you see? And then you come back to it, and I can't tell you how many times I go, that's what you meant, that's what you were doing. And none of that had to do with somebody going, the angle is a 45-degree angle, and no. So when I look back at what I was learning, and you've identified the process, my advice to you then would be, okay, stick to the feeling. Why should that be a lesser form of inquiry? I was watching a show, and the character is, a radicalized person, and the head of her organization is talking to her and wants her to say she won't continue this radical behavior. So she's going, are you going to stop that radical behavior and come to the meeting? And she's like, yes. So the words are yes, but the meaning, the feeling is, no, you're not. You see? And we communicate like that all the time. You could do that. Go home. Go home to your significant other. Try it. Do that, and see how far that gets you next time. Do you love me? Why, of course I do. So I don't get why we become so, I don't believe that there's any validity to the idea that my art must be reduced to logocentric aspects and there's only danger in a mentor. Because we live like this all the time. I think what it is this hiding of this incapacity. One of you wrote me the other day and said, what do I need most to improve? My answer is a trick. Commitment, more commitment. He goes, what do you mean? It's the same answer for everyone, isn't it? More commitment. More commitment is more time training, more sacrifice, right? It's everything. And it seems like it's an easy answer until you are tasked with commitment. It's hard. Commitment is hard. And I think it's become very difficult for us moderns. Very difficult. And I think the martial arts have suffered for it. think about the success lately of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but I look at it the other way because I've seen it happen for so many decades. The popularity does not mean the widespread successful dissemination of the art. It means the corruption of the art, because the masses will come with their lack of commitment. I've never seen an art degenerate so quickly. It's happened to every art. So I think this difficulty with commitment is very relevant, and made more so by the fact, and I truly believe this, that the finding of this thing that is neither this nor that is related structurally to self-displacement. And self-displacement is necessary for commitment. And I also think that what is neither this nor that, to embody that in a human versus human violence, that kind of intense toxic situation requires it is even a greater challenge to the skill of self-displacement. Which means if you can hold it in an idealized form, you may not be able to hold it when someone's actually trying to kill you, or when an earthquake has taken half your family, or what have you, when the situation is very intense. So even though I made it sound like it's a kind of historical evolutionary thing, this disdain for mentors, this logocentric understanding of the art, the degeneration of the art, I actually believe that it is really more subtle and more powerful in how we are affected by it, because it is structurally the same thing. The skill or the incapacity for self-displacement is a sign of our times, is a sign of our unwellness, is a sign of our disappearing mentorships, is a sign of our artistic reductions, is a sign of our inability to find what is beyond words. It all goes together. I mean, I asked you already to go with what you felt. And to do that, you have to actually feel. And try it. Try to feel anything without self-displacement. We talked last week about feeling the stones of the shower floor and the water, and all that's self-displacement. You got to get out of the way. You're not in the way. You're in the way because you're like, I got to get to work, or you're in the way. So I think in trying to feel, you're actually trying to regain your skill in self-displacement. And so the art isn't really about the architecture or even the power. It's about that skill in self-displacement. This is what makes Budo a way. It's not just fighting or exercise.